This story is kind of a folk legend here in Las Vegas. Well, completely true. And it happened to the man who belonged to the family that pretty much reshaped what we know about Las Vegas today. Free drinks, high limit slots, high limit tables, World Series of Poker. All that can be attributed to one family, and that's the Binion family. Today we're going to discuss the story of Lonnie Theodore Binion, son of Benny Binion, previous owners of Binions Horseshoe Casino. This is going to be fun. Come join me. So, Benny Binion was an old school gangster from Dallas, Texas. When I say old school, I mean like from the 40s. So Benny ran an illegal numbers running racket and casinos in Dallas, Texas. Benny's enterprise, shall we say, was protected by, let's say, a scrupulous set of DAs in the DA's office in Dallas. When that DA was replaced, the new incoming DA let Benny know pretty much his days were numbered. So Benny, knowing that there was no way to corrupt this new one, he picked up his family and he moved here to Las Vegas, settling here in 1947. So Lonnie Theodore, aka Ted Binion, was born November 28th of 1943. It was only 4 years later that his dad relocated him here to Las Vegas. When he got here to Vegas, he set them up in a very, very large home. And from what the remaining Binion family has said, was it was only going to be temporary. His plan was to eventually move them back to Dallas, Fort Worth area. But they fell in love with Vegas so much that they just decided to stay. And the house that they moved him into is located at 2040 West Bonanza Road. We're going to go look at that house right now. Now, I've been there a few times over the last couple of days, and it does still stand, but it is very, very, very run down. So what you see in front of you is what remains of the old Binion Estate. This was the home that Benny, Teddy Jane, his wife, and their 5 kids lived in when they moved here to Las Vegas. It was a beautiful home at one point if you see the old photographs. But that's what remains of it. It's a huge property, and from what I understand, the Binion family still owns all this. Now, he moved him here in 1947. And this was the childhood home. And from what I understand, this is where Benny continued to live until 1989 when he passed away. His wife had passed away a few years prior. But this is it. Now, rumor has it, after Ted was found dead, Sandy and Rick actually showed up at this location and started tearing out walls and digging up areas here on the land to try to find hidden treasure. You can imagine it was a beautiful place at one point. Here's a closer look at the entire place. As you can see, it was a good sized place. It's sad that it's in the condition that it's in now. if you look back here, that was the swimming pool back there. And I don't know if this was an add-on, if this was a porch, what this was back here, but there's a fireplace right back there. I don't know if it was an addition to the house or it was just a patio where they would hang out. But you can imagine the kids swimming while Teddy Jane and Benny sat there watching them. Now, when he got here, things are kind of vague. I hear different stories on exactly what it was that he did when he first got here. But we do know that he eventually bought several small casinos, which he sold off and eventually opened what's now known as, well, he opened Binions Horseshoe, now known as Binion's Gambling Hall and Saloon. But at the time, it was the Horseshoe. Benny pretty much brought together what we know Las Vegas is today. So Benny was the first one to offer high-limit slots and no-limit table games. That was huge. That was really huge.
Guy last summer called up and he says, I brought $260,000 out there to bet it, and I couldn't bet it. And he says, I'm disgusted because my father told me I could bet any amount of money with you. And Dad says, well, you've never really talked to me till now. He says, how much would you like to bet? And the guy says, I'd like to bet $1 million. So Dad says, bring it in cash and you can bet it. So Dad's still up at the ranch. The guy shows up in September, and so he steps up and he wins the bet, you know. So I called Dad and I said, well, Dad, he win the bet. And he says, oh, damn. But the truth of the matter is he don't worry about anything of win or lose. If he's broke, he goes to sleep just the same as if he's rich.
Free alcoholic beverages for paying customers. Now, I'm not sure if this is true, but what I did hear was at the time that was completely illegal. You could discount them, but you couldn't give them away for free. You couldn't comp them. Benny actually said, nope, we're going to give them away for free. And he paid an enormous amount of fine, from what I understand. It could have been up to $10,000 a week or a month or whatever for doing this. However, the revenue that he was getting from this, and because the casino was so busy, he was able to pay that no problem. Benny was so powerful, and when I say powerful, he was so powerful here in Las Vegas, the rest of the casinos were pretty much under New York and Chicago mob rule. Chicago and New York mobs wouldn't mess with Benny. It kind of gives you an idea of exactly how powerful this man actually was. There it is. World famous Binion's Hotel and Casino. Huh. This was the casino that Benny Binion opened and eventually would be left to Ted, Jack, and his sisters. Now his sister eventually took over this place, but profits dropped big time after she did. So she lost her interest. It's now owned by a group, an LLC company. Now, according to everything, they've decided to keep the name out of respect for what the Binions did to Las Vegas and how they shaped it. There's the hotel, which from what I understand is actually still closed. Hasn't been used in years. This is a landmark here in Las Vegas. Now, I don't know if it still exists, but at one time, one of the big things inside of this casino was they had $1 million in $10,000 bills. Now, that rule changed later on to prevent drug smugglers from carrying large amount of cash on their person. But at the time that this opened, those were still in circulation. Amazing. Some people quoted him as being, quote, a hell of a nice guy, while others claimed he was one of the most evil guys on the face of the earth. Benny allegedly had killed 2 men before leaving the Dallas area. One of his best friends was quoted as saying, he's either the meanest nice guy you'll meet or the nicest mean person you'll ever meet. But above all, Benny was a family man. Now, a few weeks before Ted turned 24 years old, he actually befriended a guy by the last name of Shoemate. Now, this friend of his dad had just relocated from Oklahoma, had run into several issues with the law, and decided he was going to try to go honest. Came out here to Las Vegas. The friend's dad's name was Marvin Shoemate. Now, Marvin was driving a cab out here in Las Vegas. He had a wife and he had kids that he had to provide for. Being down on his luck, cab driving was not really cutting the mustard, shall we say. So, those old kind of ways started coming back to him, and he hatched himself a plan. He was going to kidnap and hold for ransom his son's friend, Ted, knowing that his dad was Benny, this huge casino owner. So, he hatches this plan, and he starts trying to recruit other people into the plan. And eventually, he ends up finding himself a career criminal and casino dealer by the name of Bill Ward. Now, at first, Bill Ward was on Bill Ward was actually, he was in on it. He liked the idea and he was game. Kidnap him, ransom, his portion of it was going to be $60,000, $70,000. It's a lot of money back then. Probably to the tune of close to $500,000 probably by today's standards. Don't quote me, I'm not sure. But this was 1967. So probably $250,000, $300,000 is about what it would be worth today. So Bill was originally in on the idea. He was all in. The difference was that when Marvin started thinking about it, he knew that he was not going to be able to just kidnap, ransom Ted, and then let him go. He knew that old man Binion would eventually figure it out. So what's the solution to this? We're going to have to kill him. So he went to Bill and told him, hey, we can't afford this. You know, when we get the ransom, we're going to have to kill him and dump the body. Bill was not cool with this idea whatsoever. Kidnapping and ransoming is one thing. Killing is something completely else. So what did Bill do? Getting cold feet, he went to what he believed was the one honest police officer in the Clark County Sheriff's Office. They're now called Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, but back then it was Clark County Sheriff's Office. And he went to this detective and said, hey, I know of a plot to kidnap, ransom, and kill Ted Bundy. What Ward didn't know was this detective that he went to was an informant for old man Binion. So the police officer went to Binion. Old man Binion told him what was going on. And just 1 or 2 days before the plan to take Ted was put into place, Benny interceded. So on December 2nd of 1967, about 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, Marvin Shoemate pulled into the parking lot of his favorite bar called Pappy's. He never made it inside. He was approached by 2 men who he knew worked for Binion, and they told him that they had a job that he could make a couple of $100 real quick. Money? That kind? That quick? Sure. So he willingly got into the car. A few minutes later, when they were driving him towards Sunrise Mountain, he knew what was about to go down. 2 hours later, his body was discovered off of Lake Mead Boulevard in an unincorporated portion of Las Vegas. Now, the area where his body was found is still unincorporated. Interestingly enough, just a few hundred feet past it is a Las Vegas Metropolitan Police training area. Let's go check it out. And right here, guys, this is just off of Lake Mead Boulevard. And this was about the area where Marvin's body was found. Crazy. Now, I can't identify the exact location, but that's definitely the area where he was at. He was led out there, and it wasn't too long before he was found by that couple that was just passing by. And it was reported, and he was picked up. Now, if you look a little bit further over here, you can see the homes and everything. Now, none of that belonged there at the time. Again, this was all unincorporated, pretty much like what you see here. Now, I don't want to stick here too long, but because behind me is the Las Vegas Metropolitan Training Center, a police training center, and I've already passed 2 cops. But next, we're going to go to Woodlawn Cemetery and visit the final resting place of the man who attempted to kidnap and murder Ted Binion and instead met his maker. Alrighty, so there's Marvin Shoemate, the man that Benny Binion had killed for plotting to kidnap and kill his son Ted. It amazes me that he is literally only maybe about 300 feet away from the man, buried 300 feet away from the man who ordered his death. That astounds me. If you look just beyond that building right there in front of you on the other side is where Benny Binion is buried. That's crazy.